Well, a funny thing has happened in the run-up to the Iowa caucuses. Two new polls show long-shot Mike Huckabee almost in a dead heat for the lead with frontrunner Mitt Romney. Take a look. A New York Times poll this week finds Romney at 27%, Huckabee at 21%, and all the other Republicans trailing. And an American Research Group poll has it even closer. Romney at 26%, Huckabee at 24%. As we continue our series, Choosing the President, we welcome the biggest story in presidential politics right now, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who joins us from his home state. And Governor, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you very much, Chris.
You have got about $1 million. Governor Romney's got about $10 million. At last count, you had 10 staffers in Iowa. He had about 60. How are you making a race of this?
Well, you know, the same way the little boy fed 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 biscuits. We've just got a lot of people praying that what little we have will turn into much, and it has. And it's been an amazing thing for us. But I think what we're proving is that it's not about how many resources you have. It's about how well you use them, how well you manage them. We don't waste things. We're very frugal, and we have an incredible, fervent, volunteer group of people across this country blogging for us, working their hearts out, making sacrifices that frankly sometimes bring tears to my eyes when I hear about it.
Another big difference is that as of mid-October, Romney had run commercials 5,000 times in Iowa, and you had not run a single commercial there or anywhere else. But there's a big difference. You have now made your first TV commercial. You, in fact, even have a celebrity endorsement. And we are now going to have the world premiere of your first TV commercial of this presidential campaign. Let's watch.
My plan to secure the border, 2 words: Chuck Norris.
Mike Huckabee's a lifelong hunter who'll protect our Second Amendment rights.
Chuck Norris doesn't endorse, he tells America how it's going to be. I'm Mike Huckabee, and I approve this message. So did Chuck.
Chuck Norris approved.
Well, it's pretty clever, Governor, but what do you think in a practical sense it actually does for you in terms of convincing voters in Iowa?
Oh, it probably doesn't convince anybody. The spots we'll run next week will start doing that. But what it does do is exactly what it's doing this morning, getting a lot of attention, driving people to our website, giving them an opportunity to find out who is this guy that would come out with Chuck Norris in a commercial. So what we want to do is to, first of all, show that running for president is serious business, but that a person ought to have a little fun doing it. And so we're going to have some fun. We've had fun throughout this campaign. We plan to continue doing that. But we also want to let people kind of find out who I am and what I'm about. This commercial, we think, will drive a lot of new folks to our website who will then do some serious research about the issues.
Well, let's talk, Governor, about the issues. Your big idea in this campaign is to put the IRS out of business and set up what you call, and others have called, a fair tax.
Right.
This would be a sales tax of 23% on almost every good and service you buy, or anyone buys. But a bipartisan panel named by President Bush had this to say, and let's put it up on the screen.
All right.
They say to raise enough money, the rate would have to be 34%, not 23%. And they noted no state or country has ever levied a retail sales tax at a tax rate that even approaches the 34% required to replace the federal income tax system. And again, Governor, that is from a panel, bipartisan panel, named by President Bush.
Well, the only problem is twofold. First, they didn't really study the fair tax. They simply studied a type of consumption tax, not the actual proposal that was designed by some of the leading economists in this country. The fair tax was not just something I cooked up. Frankly, I wish I had. But it was designed by the leading economists from MIT, Boston University, Harvard, Stanford, people like Arthur Laffer, one of Reagan's key economic architects, had $20 million of research that went into the proposal. So if this bipartisan commission had actually studied the fair tax, they would have had a different conclusion. And the second thing, it is a rate of 23. It's not 30 or 34, as some of the critics complain. That's part of the problem, in that the way the fair tax works, by not having any tax on individual income, dividends, savings, capital gains, corporate or personal income, payroll taxes, you lose almost 22% of embedded tax in everything we buy. And the other thing, when you go to the marketplace, you go with your entire paycheck, something Americans, for the most part, have never done in their lives. Wouldn't that be a novel thing? You actually get everything you earn, and you decide how you spend it rather than the government taking it before you ever get your hands on it.
But the Bush panel also said, and as you say, they weren't talking about your plan specifically, because this happened a couple of years ago, but they were talking about a fair tax, which, as you point out, has been around a lot longer than Mike Huckabee has been proposing it. They said that a fair tax would reduce taxes, the tax burden, on only two groups, those making less than $30,000 a year because there's a rebate for people under the poverty line, and those making more than $200,000 a year. So the rich and the poor do better, but the vast middle class ends up paying more taxes.
Well, again, they had a fatal flaw. They didn't understand that the prebate applies to everybody, including the middle class. The second flaw was that they didn't fully comprehend that if you take the economy groups in thirds, the lowest end up getting about 12.8% benefit. Those in the middle actually end up with about a almost 7% benefit. Those at the top end up with a 4 to 5% benefit. So everybody comes out better off. And here's one of the reasons why, Chris. With the fair tax, you end the underground economy. Drug dealers, prostitutes, pimps, illegals. Everybody has to pay the tax at the retail level. So right now, those billions of dollars that people like you and me are having to make up for because other folks are working under the table, now everybody's paying into the system. That's one of the reasons that it really is a fair tax. It's fair, it's flat, it's finite, you know exactly what you're going to pay, and it's family friendly. It doesn't penalize people for being married, raising kids. In fact, it does the opposite. It encourages people in their families to take care of their families because there are benefits for each household.
Let's talk about your record as governor. The Conservative Club for Growth says about you, and let's put it up on the screen, Huckabee's substantial tax hikes far surpassed his modest tax cuts, with the average tax burden increasing by a whopping 47% over his tenure. Governor, you raised taxes on gasoline, you raised them on cigarettes, you even raised them on nursing home patients.
Well, we didn't raise them on nursing home patients. That was a quality assurance fee that was supported by the industry. People can go to my website, MikeHuckabee.com, get the full details of that, and they'll find out that what it really did was save the nursing homes from going out of business, at least about half of them. Where would those people have gone? And it increased the quality of care by increasing the staffing requirements. We also built roads. That was a good thing. That put $1 billion into our economy. We had the worst road system in the country, according to Truckers Magazine. 5 years later, I was proud to be the governor of what was called the most improved road system in the country. A lot of people wish they were working on their infrastructure, including their bridges these days, after we've seen them collapse. I didn't wait till something completely fell apart. We addressed it. The people of our state voted 80% to pay for those bonds that covered that road program, so I think I did pretty well. Now, here's what the Club for Growth won't tell you. And by the way, their tactics got to be some of the most despicable in politics today. It's why I love to call them the Club for Greed, because they won't tell you who gave their money. They just like to take money from anonymous donors, fire shots at folks without any accountability. I balanced the budget every single year of my 10 years and a half as governor. I saw tax cuts almost 94 times in my state, including signing the first ever broad-based tax cut in 160 years, and did it against the headwinds of a party that was in 90% control of the legislature at the time I became governor. I think my record's an incredibly good one, and if you look at our spending, we did a lot of things to curb it, including merging some state agencies. My first day in office, I appointed what's called a Murphy Commission to look at every agency of state government and make recommendations from a business panel of how we could make government more efficient.
Governor,